Wow. 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 I can't fucking believe it. The Edmonton Oilers have dragged the Florida Panthers back to Alberta. This is Wednesday's edition of Morning Cup of Hockey alongside Colby Cohen. I'm Johnny Lazarus. We are presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet on Betway. Please play responsibly. And remember, you must be 19 years of age or older. Don't worry, Colby. I caught myself there. I know you're about to chirp me, but we got a full episode here, most likely just talking about Game 5 last night. A lot of different things to get into within the game. But first, Colby, you're in Florida. Did you think we'd be sitting here this morning talking about this series being extended to Game 6?
I didn't. I really didn't, and I'm happy that I was
I'm
wrong.
thrilled.
The amount of times I said yesterday that I would love to be wrong, because I'm really surprised at the way Florida has allowed Edmonton back into this series, and obviously the credit has to go to Edmonton, right? I mean, they're the ones that are pushing the pace, and they're the ones that are dictating these games and having better starts. And then they're the ones getting goaltending. It's like game to game, it looks so different. And no, I really thought Florida would get out off to a good start, which they did. Mm-hmm. And you think about that save Stuart Skinner makes in the early moments of that hockey game. We're talking 2.5 minutes in or so. And think of how different that game is if that goes in the net. We talk about the timeliness earlier in this series of the saves that Bob was making, and the script is flipped. All the timely saves now, Stuart Skinner over the last 2 games has come up with 2 marquee saves in both of those games, and you almost forget about those moments, which is what a good goaltender does. He erases, plays early in a game. 18-29. We're talking a minute and 30 seconds in. Imagine what that does to the crowd, what that does to the confidence of Florida on home ice in a closeout game where they clearly were gripping their sticks a little bit too tight. Here's the replay of it, courtesy of our friends at ESPN, and you can see Skinner off of that beautiful feed coming from Barkov. It's incredible how different and how confident he looks. And then there's the other guy. The guy who just decided Wayne Gretzky, who over the last couple of days has just elevated. And I doubted Edmonton in the Dallas series. I really did. I said it all that series. I said, I don't see how Edmonton gets by Dallas. And I think one of the big issues I had was Stuart Skinner versus Jake Ottinger, but at a certain point, I guess we got to be believers in the fact that when the games tighten up late in these series, Skinner has continued to find another level.
Mm-hmm. But also to that, guess what woke up? Edmonton's power play. They go 2 for 5 last night, which is huge. And the same thing happened in the Dallas series, right? In games 5 and 6, the Oilers power play, I believe, went 4 for 5 in those 2 games combined. In Edmonton's power play, Bouchard gets that one to put them up 2-0. That's a huge goal in that game. Because if Florida ties that game at 1-1, you never know what's going to happen. But Edmonton's power play, like it has all year long, it came through. And again, I'm not taking any credit away from Stuart Skinner, but we talked about if Edmonton's going to get back in this series, what has to change. And the power play converting was one of those, if not the biggest thing that had to. And then McDavid obviously dances through 4 guys and feeds Perry backdoor for the second one. But it all starts with that Bouchard bomb, which goes off Hyman.
Look, you're talking about a guy who just had 8 points in 2 games in a Stanley Cup final. And look, this thing is a long way from over. It clearly is. Yeah. And again, now they go back to Alberta. But Florida's they're still in the driver's seat here. They're still 3-2 in this series. And I don't care what momentum says. I don't care what the last 6 periods of hockey have looked like. But you'd still rather be up 3-2 in a best of 7. But I got to tell you something, there is a little bit of destiny here with the way that Connor McDavid has risen his game and the level that he has gone to, because, you look at some of these individual plays that he's making and you think about the early parts of this series where most of what he was doing was peripheral. It was to the outside. He was having opportunities, but he wasn't getting into the middle of the ice. And you got to think he just got to a point where he said, I'm not going to be denied. I'm not going to be shut down. And that's really, to me, what we talked about earlier in this series. And I think even, we said, look, Florida's a deeper team. They're a more complete team, but they don't have Connor McDavid. And Draisaitl.
They also don't have Connor Brown.
Still been a little bit of a not like Draisaitl's still not playing at the top of his game. It's still not been as effective as we would have thought, but it's just watching McDavid do his thing in the Stanley Cup Finals is just, it's remarkable.
First person to ever have 8 points in 2 games combined in Stanley Cup Final history. We talked about it yesterday. If he could win the Conn Smythe, if the Oilers don't win the Cup, I'd say it's locked up now at this point. I don't care if Bobrovsky has a 40 save shutout in Game 6.
I don't think it's locked up.
I think
if they don't win. You think because
yeah.
the reason I would say I don't think it's locked up is because you still have 6 periods of hockey left, and look at how different.
Yeah, but it's a playoff MVP.
Yeah, but hold on.
MVP.
But look at how different we're talking about this after 6 periods, right? If 6 periods ago we would not have had McDavid as the favorite to win the Conn Smythe. We wouldn't have. He was a plus 700. We actually said, I think it was either yesterday or the day before on our show, that was where you could find value in right now in this series was at plus 700. Now we will talk later in the show about, when we do our Betway bet of the day, we'll relook at those odds. But the only reason I would say it's not locked up is if Florida wins, there's still more hockey and more periods to be played, and there's still room for heroics. And so much can change as we are now seeing over the last 6 periods. But let's think about how this game goes down, Johnny. Early in this game, Edmonton gets a big save. And then it's back to Connor Brown and the penalty kill, the guy who, there was almost run out of town this year. Took him 50 plus games to get a goal, bunch of healthy scratches, not a good transition from the Ottawa Senators to the Edmonton Oilers. And, couple games in a row, he gets his team started shorthanded and starts to give that team in white belief early in a hockey game. And they just they never stopped.
Yeah, this is an incredible individual effort. Me and Vic and you kind of joined in on a little bit late this morning about Barkov in this situation. And I'm not going to sit here and say Barkov was lazy here, but Vic, if we can pull that back up, that replay courtesy of ESPN, that race to the puck, Barkov stops skating right when he kind of realizes that Brown's going to beat him. If Barkov continues to move his feet and maybe get to the inside, you can look, it's easy to look at it now and say,
I think he tries to make a play on the puck. And once you try to extend like that and make a play on the puck, your feet are going to stop.
They're gone.
And when Brown already has that momentum, the only thing you can do there is take a penalty. Yeah. And, I think some goaltenders will tell you, don't take that penalty. Just give me that breakaway. And I think that's probably where Barkov was out on that play. How about this for a stat? I sent this to you guys earlier, but I'd like to read it out here. Bobrovsky has let in 9 on his last 39 shots with a 769 save percentage in the last 2 games. Say whatever you want about these 2 games. You do not win with sub 900 goaltending, let alone sub 800 goaltending. Ask the Edmonton Oilers when they were down 3-0 and Stuart Skinner had like an 869 or an 859. You need those saves. The Connor McDavid first goal, I think that put the game at 3. That's a dog shit goal for Bob. What's he doing there? He looks lost in his net.
I definitely questioned Bob on that, but I also was like, what a heads up play by McDavid. Bobrovsky definitely misplayed that, but I also wanted to give the proper credit to Connor McDavid on finding that little hole that he did. And There's not many guys I feel like that would score from that angle. I think is that the.
Well, hold on. Let's put it to the chat.
Yeah.
All right, because we said today we wanted to really involve our members.
Yeah, we're kind of
of the
just gonna
chat.
back over
So
the place.
I'm curious for everybody who's active right now in the chat. You look at that McDavid first goal, Vic. I don't know if you want to throw that replay up, courtesy of Sportsnet on our show. Johnny thinks credit to McDavid. Sure, you score a goal in the NHL, like you deserve a little bit of credit, but like to me, a goaltender has to save this 10 out of 10 times. This is soft as shit, in my opinion. And I think that is completely an inexcusable goal to let in, especially when your team's down 2-0. You've got to make that save and stop the bleeding there. I don't give him any excuse that, that's Connor McDavid, the best player in the world there. That's just my view on it.
No, but watch it again. There's more to it. Vic, can we get that back up quickly? Just watch how McDavid receives this puck on his backhand. Just watch. This is the craziest part to me about this goal. I don't know if it was picked up by most people, but Vic, if we can get that replay back up. When McDavid first gets this pass, his stick is like across his body on his backhand, and he gets it to his forehand so quickly. This is a better angle of it right here. Watch. That is tough. Come on. You don't think so?
I don't know, Johnny. I think you lose me a little on that. We're talking about the best players in the NHL.
But you don't think so? He made that look so easy.
Well, that's what guys in the NHL do.
No, that's what Connor McDavid does. Shit. That's not guys in the NHL. That's Connor McDavid.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm the first to say I'm Connor McDavid is the best player in the world, maybe ever, from an ability standpoint, maybe ever.
I don't know if there's
that play right there is a run of the mill play for 70% of the players in the National Hockey League to grab a puck on the backhand. I think you're completely reaching here. I don't think that has anything to do with how soft that goal is.
No, I'm not.
I just think you're completely reaching here on that play.
No, you're not. You're not listening to me. I said
I listened
when I first started this. He dances around a Panther on his backhand. Like, that's insane.
That first angle. I just think that's a routine play. For him, it's I could do it with my eyes closed, but I think half the players on the ice on either team can grab a puck on their backhand and transition it to their forehand
that quickly. I don't know. I think that was a sick play. And again, like I said, I'm not like I'm giving credit to McDavid for that play because I thought it was a nasty play. And Bobrovsky, yes, he 10 times out of 10 he has to have that. But also, something I want to read too. Marty Biron, former NHL goalie, works in the media. He tweeted out with this goal, "Where are all my RVH haters?" Which is something that like Henrik Lundqvist I feel like talks about a lot on the TNT broadcast. Bob played that like a 1985 goalie and got beat. RVH, VH, Panda, overlap, stand up. They're all save skills that need to be used in the right situation. Evolution in goalie play can't be overlooked, and RVH would have helped here. Like that, like a reverse V.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I hear.
Yeah.
No, Wise Kyle 0800 Colby notified McDavid hater routine. You're a joke. You don't think 95% of the NHL.
I mean, I think that was a pretty
noted play. McDavid hater. That's pretty funny. Tell me you don't watch or listen to our show by telling me you don't watch or listen to our show. I don't know, man.
Without telling me.
That looks like a pretty routine play to me, grabbing a puck on your backhand and moving it to your forehand. And again, 10 out of 10 times that has to be saved. It wasn't saved. We've talked about this, whether it's Skinner, whether it's Bob, whether it was Ottinger. It doesn't matter what playoff series we've talked about. You can't let goals up like that, in these games. Just look at how well even Skinner played early in the series when they were down and didn't come up with those 1 or 2 saves. And Bob was coming up with those 1 or 2 saves, which is really how you got to 3-0, down 3-0 in the first place. So goaltenders got to do their job. They've got to make the timely saves. You cannot let up soft goals. The margin for error is just way too razor thin. Look how tight that game got late. Look at the different plays guys made, even on the empty net, whether it was Tkachuk, whether it was when they finally did break through there, it's just too much of a thin razor edge on those types of plays. So, look, it's remarkable that he has just again, he's dragged the team on his back and he's gotten some help, no doubt. Corey Perry gets a goal. What a polarizing guy he is.
Yeah.
We were all ready to basically say, wow, Perry again, 4 Stanley Cups he's losing out of 5. And now all of a sudden he scores a big time goal in that game, and McDavid just human highlight reel. I mean, this ability, watch how he doesn't start moving his feet until he's 2 feet over the red line. And then all of a sudden, I mean, he's like a Ferrari. I mean, whatever car on the market can go from 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 faster than any other car. I don't know which vehicle that is because I'm not a car guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he doesn't even rev this one up. I mean, that's what's incredible. Like, he doesn't turn on the burner until he's 2 steps over the red line, which again, you talk about changing your speed. It's one of the hardest things for a defenseman to defend a forward who can change speeds, in that short period of a time, because when he's kind of lulling up the ice in the beginning and he's moving his feet a little bit, right? But let's say he's going about 50%, 60%.
This video is so sick.
You back in. And to me, McDavid is doing that on purpose. Like, he's going up at one pace, and then he changes his speed once he gets about 2 to 3 steps over the red line. And by that time, that 1.5 feet of gap that he just created for himself on Mikkola and the Florida Panthers, neutral zone set is why he can do that. And then obviously he has a different skill set than everybody else in the world to be able to, stick handle out of a phone booth through a couple of 6'3" defensemen with long sticks who can guys who can actually skate pretty well. And then he has the wherewithal to pass that puck to Perry and give him that slam dunk of a goal, like we saw on the Holloway goal the other night. Similarly, Holloway's driving the net and he just, basically says, put your stick down. I'll hit it off your stick. It'll go on the net like Gretzky used to do. He used to talk about that. So that change of speed, though, Johnny, in the neutral zone, I know you weren't a defenseman. I was, right? Mm-hmm. Forwards that were really good at that were really difficult to defend because you just never could set your gap properly. And when those guys turn up, you don't have time to react. You get caught reaching as a defenseman. The kiss of death is when you reach. And Mikkola reached there. And then McDavid, did his thing.
There's also people in the chat addressing it too. But on that goal, I believe it was Darnell Nurse screaming on the bench to Perry, you go, you go, you go. It wasn't supposed to be Perry that hopped on the ice for that play.
It was right at the end of a power play, right?
Yeah, it was not supposed to be Corey
Good
Perry.
Listen, that's good heads up hockey right there.
Yeah.
You see that we're on a rush. You have full possession of the puck. Let the forward jump out farther down the bench, okay? And then you'll pick up the next guy as a defenseman. A lot of these power plays in the dying seconds, you've got 4 forwards on the ice, which means a defenseman will then change for a forward. So very, very heads up play there by Darnell Nurse. And for Corey Perry to be ready, a lot of times you're not ready for that.
Also,
so that
elevate the puck as high as he did in that tight little window too.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, that's how guys are mentally dialed in. You've got one team that seems to be taking too many men penalties, making a lot of mental errors. And then you've got another team that just seems more dialed in over really not just 6 periods of hockey. You could probably say over 7 periods of hockey, because if you think about the third period, was it in game 3 when Edmonton had a pretty good push on that game? They started to open the floodgates with Bob a little. They obviously came up short in that game, but you're starting to think about, all right, now you're talking about 7 periods where Edmonton just is mentally sharper and physically sharper, and the hope is there. And now who doesn't think Edmonton's going to win a game in Alberta and push this series back to Florida for game 7? I'd be hard pressed to find anybody who doesn't think that that's going to happen.
Well, it's a good point that you bring up. And it's actually something that I really wanted to kind of debate or argue or talk about on our show today, because I know for a fact every show in the hockey world is going to be asking this question, right? Which team has more pressure? Is it obvious now that the pressure falls on Florida? Because I actually don't think so. Zach Hyman, other guys on Edmonton, when they're down 3-0, they're sitting there saying, we got no pressure now. No one expects us to come back. We're down 0-3. The odds are against us. But now, you're down 3-2 in a series. You're going back on home ice, playing in front of your home fans. You're in the series again. There's pressure on you to win at home. There is. And Colby, I know you're probably looking at the chat. I don't know what you're reading, but I don't think that all the pressure is on the Panthers still. I still believe that the pressure right now in this series, granted that Edmonton just won 2 games in a row, but I think the pressure is on Edmonton. I mean, listen, I am also coming from a place where I saw the same exact thing happen to the New York Rangers against Carolina. They go up 3-0. They lose game 4 on the road. They come back home ready to close it out. They lose at home. Game 6, you think Carolina has all the momentum in the world. The Rangers fall behind. They come back and win in that third period. It was a crazy comeback, granted, but there's pressure when you're playing in front of your home fans to get it done. And, we could talk about how magical this feels, but it will be 100 times more heartbreaking if the Oilers were to win these 2 games just to lose and have the Stanley Cup given out on their home ice to the Florida Panthers. Like I am sitting here, and you probably would have thought that I'd be so dramatic saying that the Panthers are cooked. If they lost game 5, it's for sure going 7. I don't think so. I'm still not ready to say the Panthers are done here. They've been such a good road team all playoff long. And I think game 6, the pressure is still on Edmonton.
Yeah. Well, hold on. I just want to finish the point on we're talking about that McDavid goal, and then we'll
you made the point of, yeah.
I'll come with you on this pressure thing. So Richard Sanders in the chat, or Saunders, says the Oilers post-game radio, they were saying the D-men weren't wrong. There's just no way to defend McDavid. And they used Heiskanen as an example. Yeah. Look, I'm not saying Florida played that wrong. I'm giving the credit to McDavid because of the way that he's able to change speed. When you watch a guy come up the ice at 50 or 60%, albeit McDavid's 50 or 60% is kind of 100% for the way most guys can skate, even in that league. When you change those speeds, you force a defenseman. All right, he's going slow, so now you're slowing down. Or if you don't slow down, he's buying gap because you're still backing in and he's not coming at you with that type of speed. So when he then does turn it on, the minute as a defenseman, you shift your body weight to your toes, right? And you reach for a puck, and you could actually see Mikkola reach for that puck. That's when McDavid, and there's a couple of them in the world, McDavid, McKinnon can do it. Even like Makar can do it. You see Yossi do it. You guys brought up Heiskanen. Some of these guys that can, flip that switch and change their speed. Not all the fastest players in the NHL can do that. A lot of those guys have straight line speed, but they don't have the ability to shift in and shift out of gears, like a Ferrari or whatever the fastest, car is. One of these NASCAR race cars or Formula One race cars is probably more of a reasonable comparison. So, I don't think I disagree with Oilers radio. And if Jack Michaels, I don't know if Jack was talking about it with Louis. I don't know who's the color guy on Oilers radio right now, but I guess it's probably Bob Stauffer, actually, now that I think about it. But I don't disagree. Like you can't really point fingers at those guys. You're just, guys like that are just going to make plays, and you tip your cap to them. You try to limit them, but it's something Florida needs to address, because over the last 3 games, noticeably different in the gap control, in back pressure, in the way that, McDavid's been able to enter the offensive zone through the middle of the ice. Florida just hasn't done a good enough job of clogging it up. And when you give this guy an inch, he's going to take a mile and continue to extend space and continue to create space with one step lateral, one step north, and then you're in trouble. So I don't disagree with you, what you're saying in there, Richard Saunders. And I think that Oilers radio is on top of it. Those guys are good at what they do. We're big fans of Jack Michaels on this show. We talk about him all the time, and Bob Stauffer as well. Total legend, total beauty. But you got to find ways, and to stop McDavid, it's got to usually be committee, not a single player, because I just don't know how many single players can do it. It's where, Ekblad and Forsling together did a nice job through 3 games, right? And with a little help from Barkov down the middle. And right now they're not getting the matchups, and they're not taking away time and space like they did. So just kind of wanted to clean that point up, Johnny. And as far as the pressure situation that you're talking about goes, look, let me ask you a simple question.
Yeah.
All right. In the best of 7, would you rather be up 3-2 or would you rather be down 3-2?
Yeah. No,
let's just take this from a factual standpoint. Let's take the emotion out of it. Let's take momentum out of it. Let's take personality out of it. What would you rather be, up 3 or down, up 3-2 or down 3-2? It's a stupid question to ask, almost, right? So,
well, it was asked to Paul Maurice last night. I don't know which media member asked it. I watched the post game press conference after the game, and in theory, the series is technically right where it should be, right? If the home teams stay on par, it'd be 3-2 Florida, right? Because the first 2 games are in Florida, next 2 are in Edmonton, home game 5 in Florida, so it'd be. If we're talking about you're not in trouble till you lose at home, this would kind of be the outcome right now prior to game 6. So you can look at it any way you want. But yeah, Colby, I agree with you. I'd much rather be up 3-2 than down 3-2. And I think I guarantee you any show, any outlet, any person that you listen to today is gonna say the pressure is now on the Florida Panthers. And I actually disagree, which is crazy because of all people, I'd be the one fucking saying, oh my God, the Panthers are fucked. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I usually am. But I feel like I've learned so much from watching these playoffs. And yesterday we were talking about how each game has its own unique story and things don't carry over from game to game. But here's where I'm going to play, I guess, devil's advocate. The one thing that has carried over and the one exception maybe to that rule is Connor fucking McDavid, man. 4 points in back-to-back games. Like that's carrying over. And at this rate, like you just went on a 2-minute rant about, what are you doing to slow him down? So
especially when you're playing on, when you're a visiting team, you don't get last change. So let's say you want to look more at a hard matchup. You're not necessarily going to get it because, Edmonton's got last change. And again, you want to go a hard matchup. Well, you're just going to free up a guy like Draisaitl. I think the scary thing, if you're the Florida Panthers is I still put my money on Leon Draisaitl entering this series in an impactful way at some point. I still think that happens, but it hasn't. Right. And now you're talking about a series 3-2 going back to Edmonton. Right. It's like everybody's held serve now, like you said. Obviously we're on tomorrow already. So we're not thinking about the past. We're not thinking about how you got here. It's 3-2. Now I would remind people that, as we said, it's very hard to sweep a team in the NHL. It's hard to beat a team 4 times in a row. So the odds are still in Florida's favor. They are. There's a reason nobody's done it since 1942.
Yeah.
At a time when, the NHL was a much different landscape, right? There's just a reason it hasn't happened. It's happened a couple of times in other rounds. Obviously it happened with the Bruins and the Flyers in 2010. But it's a mountain to climb, and you can't really look at it that way. If you're Edmonton, you have to start thinking about smaller increments, and I'm sure that's the way that's
probably what they've been doing. You're not going to win 4 games in one night, right? Are you reading a comment?
No, yeah, I'm trying to keep my eyes on the chat. Yeah.
Can I ask you a ridiculous question, and you could shoot this down if you want?
You can always try, Johnny.
Yeah. Well, because game 6 is Friday and we don't have a show Friday morning. Okay. So I don't know when we'll be able to talk about, what the possible outcome is, but.
And then, so that means game 7 would be what, Monday?
It's Monday. Yeah. And we're not supposed to have a show Monday, but maybe we can figure something out.
Yeah.
Depending on how this goes. So we'll talk about that after the show, but let's say the Oilers do this. Let's say they come back and win the Stanley Cup. Does Connor McDavid ever have to win a cup ever again for his legacy? or is this just like, dude, to come back from down 3-0 in the finals, the way that McDavid is doing it right now, and I know there's still 2 games to be played, but we're talking about what could be the most legendary comeback win in all of sports, not only hockey. Stanley Cup final, and the best player in the sport is the one doing it. And I know, like, LeBron did it in 2016.
Well, and they say
the record-setting Warriors.
And they say that the Stanley Cup is, I mean, which I completely agree with, by the way, is the hardest trophy to win in sports. I mean, even people from other sports media, sportscasters, athletes, they say it too, right? I mean, it's not like just hockey people have that sentiment.
But in every sport, I've been thinking about, trust me, I thought about this question last night and I was like, is this too early? Is this ridiculous to ask? But when you think about the four major sports, you have the Yankees coming back from, or the Red Sox coming back from down 3-0 against the Yankees. They go on to win the World Series, not in the World Series, but they go on to do it later. The LeBron 3-1 comeback. No one ever did it in the NBA Finals. He does it against the Warriors, that record-setting team. And then the Patriots 28-3 Super Bowl comeback. Like where would the Oilers 3-0 comeback in the Stanley Cup final kind of rank with those three? Like maybe I think I'm biased, but I feel like Connor McDavid is, it's LeBron James, Tom Brady, and, I guess like David Ortiz would be the guy in baseball. But, these are some legendary moments that I feel like McDavid might leap if they do this.
Listen,
I'm just trying to get ahead of all the other sports shows that might talk about this.
Unfortunately, in America, at least, it's never going to get the love and respect because it's hockey is the sort of the least talked about of the majors here in America. In Canada, he'll get a statue right next to Gretzky. Wherever there's a Gretzky statue, they're just going to start popping up McDavid statues. Look, do I think he needs to win more cups?
That's probably the stretch of the question. The main point of the question was like where it ranks just as far as like legendary status to do this. Because those other three things live on forever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The 28-3, the 3-0 comeback with Boston.
Yeah, listen, it definitely becomes one of the greatest moments of all time as far as a team moment goes, right? I mean, as good as McDavid is playing, it's still a team sport. It obviously goes towards his legacy because he's strapped things on his back and really taken things into his own hands, which is what we said was the X factor in the beginning of this series. We all thought it would go 7 games. We all thought Florida probably had a more complete hockey team. And we all said Connor McDavid was the X factor of the guy who could just make a decision and help his team win just by saying, okay, I'm going to do this or that because he's just that good. So, let's see if he wins it. Let's see the fashion that they win it in. I'm not ready to take a stance on that because it's just too much of a hypothetical. We're not even talking about Game 7 yet, Johnny.
Granted, I did phrase it this way.
I get it. That's why I wasn't too harsh on you. I mean, look, unfortunately or fortunately, we could only have one more game this year. It's still a feasible outcome. You're still talking about the two best teams in the league this year. And again, you got to wonder with Florida, like, are they going to are they going to wake up? Are they going to resharpen themselves with these 2 days? Remember, they're now going back to Florida. They're probably traveling this morning, a couple of days in their own bed and back on their home ice, back in their country club of a practice facility for 24 hours. So look, it's given us another day or two of hockey to talk about. We won't take it for granted. McDavid gave us some wow moments last night that if you're sitting there watching on TV, you're rubbing your eyes and you're thinking, did he just do that in a Stanley Cup, final Game 5? It's absolutely incredible. So, look, I think that the other thing from a Florida Panthers standpoint, Matthew Tkachuk seemingly entered the series last night. We talked about him as an anytime goal scorer. We hit on that. So if you follow along with our Betway Bet of the Days, we did hit yesterday with Tkachuk. But it's interesting to me how pedestrian some of the back end for Florida has looked. There's a good look at that snipe that he had, video courtesy of ESPN. It was a bad turnover by Dylan Holloway about 3 feet inside the blue line. Maybe bad turnover is not the right word, but he loses a battle along the wall. But here's the thing. Florida gets that goal to make it 3-1. And then all of a sudden, look at the response from Edmonton. This is what championship teams do, playoff teams do. You make a mistake like Holloway does, you go out the next shift and you cover for your teammate and you find a way to score another goal. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
The responses last night when Florida would start to, get a little gas going, get a little fire brewing, there was just always a response from Edmonton.
Yeah. And actually, it's funny because you talk about this all the time. I don't know if you caught any of the post-game stuff. I was up late on YouTube watching it because there was
did not.
It is annoying that there's no like post-game coverage from ESPN, but we can get into that another time. But Zach Hyman said, and I'm apologizing if I'm misquoting here, but he said essentially hockey is very simple when you think about it. And you say this all the time. Whoever wins more battles is going to wins
hockey games.
That's literally what Hyman said, like in the post game.
Oh, Zach Hyman said that
in the post game. Yeah,
it's true. Like no matter what, any other way you want to look at it, it's a game of 50-50 battles.
Yeah, and the last couple of games, Edmonton has won those battles. And it starts right from Connor Brown and Barkov. Right, that's a 50-50 puck. Connor Brown wins that race, and it's in the back of Florida's net. So that's what it's coming down to right now. It's just Edmonton winning those battles. But I wanted to ask you, I know you hate talking about your playing experiences.
You made a comment about not having post-game coverage. And I see Steve Gross in the chat said, can you talk about no coverage after the game on ABC? Hockey doesn't get the respect. And then I saw somebody Steve Gross said that in the chat, and then somebody commented under, I can't find that comment now, that said, the thing is that an NHL Stanley Cup Finals game is getting the same ratings as a Caitlin Clark WNBA regular season game. That's just a reality, everyone. It's an unfortunate reality, and you see the difference in the resources for the NBA Finals versus the NHL Finals, and what happens is it's ratings driven. Because ratings drives revenue, which drives budgets. And when you look at a game that's getting 3 million viewers in America, which has 330 million people, so you're talking about 1% of the population is watching. Maybe it's less than 1%. You would need 3.3 to be. And I know a lot of those people are small children and babies or whatever, but when you only have 1% of the population, ABC's not going to allot the time. And so I hear you on that. I would love to be able to watch a post-game show and a pre-game show on ABC.
To that, I actually want to shout out Oilers Nation because I watched their show in the post-game last night, Oilers Nation After Dark, I believe. And they have Fernando Pisani coming on at 2 p.m. Eastern time today. So I'll be watching Oilers Nation today for sure. Those guys do an incredible job. Tyler Yaremchuk, who always comes on this show, they've been crushing the playoff coverage. And last night, I'm looking for shit to watch. I tuned into Oilers Nation. I watched my friends at What Chaos. Shout out to Pete Blackbird and DJ Bean. So there are things on YouTube, people like us as well, that do the post-game stuff. Colby and I don't do post-game, but, maybe at some point in the future we could. But yeah, there are things on YouTube if you're looking for post-game commentary you could find. But I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just wanted to shout out.
I was just like, we're in agreement with you all on those types of things. And look, I work for ESPN. And so, but I'm just being honest with you guys. I do the national championship game on ESPN, and we do it on ESPN2 for the national championship game because we only get a million people watching. And people say, well, why is the college baseball World Series on ABC or women's volleyball national? Because they draw more than 1 million viewers. It's completely ratings driven. Ratings drives advertising revenue, which drives budgets. And that's how they come up with these things. And that's how they decide how they can maximize their TV. And if they think, SportsCenter is going to get them better advertising ratings on ESPN, well, they're going to put the point on ESPN2, and there's not going to be a pregame show on ABC nationally. It's a shame, but it's just a reality of the way this is going. And I saw another, comment in the chat, and, I don't have my normal setup. As you guys can all tell, I'm not home right now. So I'm struggling to keep up as much with the chat, but I did see someone said if Chicago is in it or New York is in it, one of these bigger cities, it changes things. Oh, JC, right? Here's a comment. Hockey is regional in the US. If Boston, New York, or Chicago is playing, the TV ratings are good. Yeah, look, it's much different. You know, if you have the Chicago Blackhawks or the New York Rangers in it, you're probably talking about closer to like 4 million people watching, 5-6 million people watching. You draw in regions rather than just diehard, you know, hockey fans. So
Weinberg's a fucking comedian in the chat every day.
What is he saying?
He said if it was Dallas, Florida, it'd be on ESPNU.
I mean, listen, that would be something that ESPN would not be hoping for. Although, you know, it would have been great hockey.
I credit Weinberg 85 every morning. He's in here cracking jokes. He just said someone in Florida needs to date Taylor Swift.
That would be great for the ratings.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely phenomenal for the ratings.
They actually, I mean, they haven't shown like Ariana Grande, I feel like, as much too. She's pretty big. I mean, she's not Taylor Swift, but like should be showing Ariana Grande more. No?
Yeah. Well, look, these are all conversations that I think everybody's really aware of, and it's just the realities of hockey. You know, we all have our wants, and we're not any different than you guys. It's a bummer to not get that 30-minute sort of wrap up post game at the end of the game. It's a bummer because you just kind of redigest the game. You spend a little bit of time watching some highlights. You hear what people that have played this game at generally a Hall of Fame level or highly elite levels think about certain plays. You may agree, you may disagree, which is all good fun and all part of it. It's no different than when you guys are in here with us, you know, and you're either agreeance or disagreeance. A lot of our listeners, they agree on one topic. The next topic, they think we're crazy. It all makes this stuff go around. So, you know, we hear you. We wish we were with you on it. And we'll see as the TV sort of evolves, and Amazon is now getting involved. It seems like Hockey in Canada, they just bought some of the rights for that. And then I think that's only a matter of time before it happens in America. They're involved in football now. They have their own package. You know, they're going to get involved in hockey in the US. So I think it's going to be even better and better, and it's going to continue to help grow this. But, you know, until a Stanley Cup final game can do, you know, 10 times more viewers than Caitlin Clark is pulling in on a regular season game, they've got work to do with advertising revenue, Johnny.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I don't really have much more to say on that topic. There are a couple other things from the game I kind of want to get into, but before I ask you just like one or two more questions about last night's game, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Perasso. We'll make these like a Perasso playoff preview, couple final questions to wrap it up. Perasso is the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Perasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Perasso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15 at Perasso-USA.com. And let me ask you this question, Colby, and I'll ask the chat as well, because all playoff long we have raved and loved Paul Maurice, right? Like this has been a Paul Maurice show essentially through the entire playoffs, with his post-game comments to his quotes to the way he coaches his team to everything. Where does this situation kind of leave Paul Maurice's legacy if Florida doesn't, like, I guess how important is this cup for his legacy? Because he has
let me
just read this stat out, because he's got the second most games coached in NHL history behind Scotty Bowman and has 0 rings. He got the most losses as a coach in NHL history. And if this goes south, what does that do for his legacy?
Again, he's not going anywhere. I saw earlier in the chat, I don't know who it is. This was way earlier in the show. Someone said, does Paul Maurice get fired if they lose?
I don't think he gets fired. That's
no chance.
Yeah, that's
absolutely no chance. Absolutely no chance. Okay. You've got your team in the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years in a row. You're not getting out coached here. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not pointing fingers at him. Your goaltender, in my opinion, is letting you down a little bit right now if you're the Florida Panthers, amongst other things.
Yeah, not in game 4. Not in game 4.
Some disciplinary issues, you know, some little things here and there. And also, again, Edmonton has just gone, you know, they've raised their game and it hasn't been matched by Florida. But it's hard to answer that question, Johnny, because again, they're still up 3-2 in a Stanley Cup final, right? Yeah. These are still highly, you know, we're playing the guessing game here and the hypothetical game here. We're not at game 7 yet.
All right, well, I'll blame Vic because that was his question.
let's get to game 7 before we start talking about Paul Maurice's legacy. Let's see how this finishes out. Let's see what he does. I mean, he stepped away from his team when he was in Winnipeg because he just said, I can't get this team over the hump. We're not meshing together. And Winnipeg's one of those places that doesn't seem like they want to fire coaches like Columbus. I mean, I took my shot at Columbus there. Sorry. Like Columbus was with Jarmo Kekalainen, as we talked about yesterday. So let's see how this series plays out, and then ask me that question, because I don't want to do the hypothetical thing. Yet when a team is up 3-2 in the Stanley Cup Finals, right? I just don't. I don't want to live in that moment yet. And just as I just made a little joke about the Columbus Blue Jackets, a couple other things, just house cleaning items I want to bring up. Mm-hmm. And I've seen people in the chat throwing this out there, which I appreciate. If you're enjoying this episode, give us a like, leave a comment on the episode. The likes help throw us up the chart for the algorithm, helps the show grow. The comments as well. Johnny told me that he's going to spend a few hours tonight reading all the comments and responding to all the comments. Now, I'll warn you, he does have thin skin, so just be nice. All right. If you're going to take shots, direct them at me. Tell Johnny you think his hair looks nice, or, that his forehead isn't as big as I always say.
It looks big today, right?
Tell him nice.
I got a haircut yesterday.
give him nice comments. You can bring the vitriol towards me. I think that's probably better suited. I don't know why you got a haircut. I thought your hair was looking really good yesterday. I think when it grows out, it looks pretty good, but you're trying to go with that Matthew Tkachuk sort of flow hawk thing. The other thing I wanted to tell you guys is check out an interview that's going to drop at 1 p.m. today on the Daily Faceoff YouTube between Frank Saravalli and Brian McClellan. So that'll come out at 1 o'clock on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. If you're not subscribed to the Daily Faceoff YouTube, I would highly recommend doing a little trial subscription right now. It's obviously free to do, but the content that's going to be coming out over the next 2 weeks with the draft and free agency alone will be really good. And the other thing is I know Frank sat down with Ryan Warsofsky yesterday and did a one-on-one interview for Frankly Speaking. I don't know when that will be coming out, but Frank texted me after that interview and said it was one of the best interviews he's ever done. He said Ryan Warsofsky got really emotional, really raw. He said, I'm really rooting for this guy with just how, honest he was within the interview process that in their, talk yesterday for Frankly Speaking. So keep an eye on the YouTube channel for that. And then, again, continue to download on podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your audio. Just put that automatic download on. And this way, again, if you only catch the first half of our show, you got a little time in the car, you're going for a little walk with your dogs, whatever it may be. It's nice out this time of year. You can catch the second half of the episode and just, continue to comment, continue to rate, continue to hit that like button. All of those things are awesome. And we really appreciate the love and the support for the show.
Yeah. Now I'm getting chirped about my nose and my forehead. So thanks for that, dickhead.
Really? I told people to be nice about it. I mean, God.
No, they're friendly chirps. Johnny. Friendly chirps.
I can't.
We're not going to think about it after the show.
Don't do it in the
mirror for an
hour.
Don't
do it in the live chat. Do it in the non-live chat.
Yeah, where I can't see it.
That way it lives on, and then at least I can come in behind you and gang up on him or comment, later after I put my little one to bed at her early bedtime. So, by the way, never flying with a 1-year-old ever again in my life. I literally said to my wife after our flight yesterday, we should drive back to Philly from Florida. That's how bad the experience was. My daughter screamed for 90 minutes of a 2-hour and 20-minute plane ride. Mm-hmm. I mean, screamed. Like, I was going around telling people, when
you're also that guy. You're also that guy. I know for a fact, if it's someone else's kid on the plane, you're like, these parents are fucking.
No,
shut that kid up. I feel like that's so
never.
You.
I have headphones. I have noise canceling headphones. I don't hear shit on an airplane.
Really?
But I felt really bad for everybody sitting. I felt really bad for everyone. I told everyone, I'll go to the first bar we see when we get off the plane, and I will put my credit card down. Go get yourself a drink, because that's how bad I felt with how she was screaming on the plane yesterday. Oh man, it was a rough plane ride, Johnny. Really rough plane ride.
Yeah, that is rough. I guess if we're talking off-topic stuff. And
by the way, Tommy
what?
T, Frank does not pay the bills. Frank did not launch Daily Face-Off. Frank is a major partner and player at the Daily Face-Off, which falls under Nation Network, which is a larger company that has been, bought by a couple of different private equity firms. We all roll up under one company called Better Collective. Playmaker Capital purchased them about a year ago, and then Better Collective came in and purchased them about a year ago. So this company is a massive size company that has Daily Face-Off as a branch, Nation Network as a branch, and all of the above. And Frank came in a couple of years ago to help really grow it and grow, the reach on social media and grow the brand. So he does not pay the bills, but as you guys see, we all promote each other's shows. We all do each other's shows, and we're all under one parent company of Better Collective. And then you kind of see how the different arms of Better Collective, kind of branch out. But it's actually a global company, Better Collective. They have a presence all over the world at this point because it's been growing so much. So, obviously Frank and I also go back to playing hockey together when we were little kids. We've known each other for, I'm 35, Frank's 36 or 37. So we've probably known each other for 30 years at this point. So I digress. Go ahead, Johnny.
No, I was going to go off topic for a second too, because we talked about it before, but anyone interested in getting their nose waxed, I got it for the first time yesterday, and it's quite nice. I like it. My nose feels pretty free right now, and I'm breathing.
All right, Johnny. I don't think anybody cares.
Yeah, I don't think anyone gives a shit.
I don't think anybody cares.
Well, everyone was tripping my nose, tripping my forehead, so I was like, you know what? I'll take this as an opportunity to tell people to get their nose waxed.
All right, so look, we'll obviously have a show tomorrow. We will not have a show Friday. We normally don't. I can tell you guys this. We are excited. That we will be back next season. We have kind of figured that out for next season. We've also kind of figured out that next year during the playoffs, we're going to go to 5 days a week during the playoffs. So we won't be abandoning you guys on Friday mornings for the playoffs, due to really popular demand from you guys and the support that you guys have given us. And so, we feel expanding the show to 5 days a week in the playoffs was really important. We're still working on the details for next week, but it doesn't appear that we're going to have a show Monday because we're going to go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week. So we're doing a show during the first round of the NHL draft that day. But there's still details up in the air about the timing of all that. So bear with us. We should have some sort of update for you guys on tomorrow's show. And otherwise, I promise you, Johnny and I will promote it on our Twitter pages and on social media throughout the day, the next couple of days. So you guys are completely in the loop as to what's going on. So we appreciate that stuff. I'll be doing Daily Face-Off live today with Tyler Yaremchuk at noon because Frank is traveling now back to Edmonton. It's not just the teams going back to Edmonton. The media is now also on their way back to Edmonton.
They're probably all so pissed. So pissed.
Frank had 2 flights booked for this morning. One was to Philly and one was to Edmonton. Mm-hmm. Obviously canceling. If it didn't work out, he's going. If they lose, he's going back to Philly, going home. Yeah, to be with his family. If not, his wife's probably ready to kill him right now because his kids are out of school, so he's probably in the doghouse, pretty good right now. But we may try to get a guest on tomorrow. I think we talked about that. Maybe difficult because everybody's going to be traveling here, if not today, tomorrow. So we'll see if we can bring someone relevant in to talk tomorrow for the game. Other than that, let's hit our Betway bet of the day, Johnny. I don't know if we can touch on some of the news after we talk Betway really briefly, because there was some news around the NHL, some speculation that you may have even started. I saw on social media, but Betway still offering the great promotion of a free $200 bet. You can take advantage of that by scanning the QR code on your screen, create that account, and make your first bet as much or as little as you want. You'll be reimbursed if it doesn't hit up to $200. I could tell you this, Johnny and I lost money. We did a little parlay together last night. We were out of that parlay very early. Last time I ever listened to Johnny and put $100 down on a big swing and parlay. So hopefully you all had a little bit more success than we did last night. If you took our Matthew Tkachuk anytime goal scorer at plus 175 yesterday, well, you would have made a couple of bucks because he did score a big goal for his team, trying to drag him back into the series. But for our Betway bet of the day today, here's what we wanted to look at. We said on this show either yesterday or the day before, if you're looking for value, okay, the value was Connor McDavid at plus 700. This was 24 hours ago. Now, fast forward to this morning, Connor McDavid minus 181 to win the Conn Smythe. What a jump. Plus 700, minus 181, Johnny. I think some savvy gamblers are going to make a shitload of money on this because they probably put some coin down on that plus 700, which now sits at minus 181 because we're even sitting here saying Florida could win game 6 and McDavid still might get it. Yeah. Okay. He's still probably the leader in the clubhouse to win the Conn Smythe, especially if they lose and he gets another goal or a point or a couple of points, which it seems like at this point is completely inevitable.
I'm fucking kicking myself too. I know I told you, like, I think I said at the start of the show, and, you know, a lot of gambling advice out there is like, you know, sometimes go with your gut, sometimes ignore your gut. My gut yesterday said Oilers, but I couldn't get my brain to agree with my gut. And I put all my money on Florida. Everything that, like, every bet that I made in that game was toward the Panthers. And my gut was just rooting for Edmonton the whole time. And I didn't do the plus 700 Connor McDavid, Conn Smythe, because I didn't think they'd have that kind of game last night. And I am pissed at myself for missing that opportunity. So, you know, we talked about it, Colby, earlier in the show. I think it's McDavid's Conn Smythe to lose. I just don't see how anyone, because remember, the award is playoff MVP. And this guy has been doing it all playoff long. And I know, you know, so have Barkov and Bobrovsky, but everything McDavid's done in this series has overshadowed what they've done. And that's why I also think it's just his at this point. Mm-hmm. But that's all I really got on that.
There's also a recency bias, you know, like what have you done for me lately? What did you do in the last game? Is there going to be an overtime game with an overtime hero? I think all of those things will come into play, which is why I think, listen, he's certainly the leader and the favorite, but I'm not ready to hand it to him when we might have 3 periods or 6 periods of hockey left.
Well, here's also another good question, though, because Big E said, why would he win the Conn Smythe if they lose? And I see that side of the argument. Again, like, the MVP,
it's rare. When is the last time that happened?
J.S. Shiger, I think, in 03. But
against
typically been goalies.
Who did they play in that series? Do you remember? Was it the Devils? Yeah. My God, I remember that. Was that the series where was that when Stevens absolutely ended Korea and then Korea came back out and scored? Could you imagine that happening now? Could you imagine that hit happening now and him coming back with concussions and spotters? And I mean, that is many worlds ago, not even many moons ago at this point.
I literally think, and maybe we can do this like in an off-season episode or whatever, but I think that Gary Thorne call is the best goal call of all time. I think floor on the board. I love
my favorite Gary Thorne call was on my overtime winner in the national championship game. So I mean, yes, was it great when he did it for Korea? But it's a little cooler when he's calling your name.
Did he say Cohen though?
Yeah, of course he did.
He did? I'm gonna have to rewatch
it. He said Cohen, but Barry, who is my good friend now, and we laugh about this all the time, he never called me Cohen. He called me Cone. Like Linda Cohn. He never really gave me the full last name. So like, you don't give me my full first name. Barry never gave me the full last name. So listen,
that is Gary Thorne call.
Gary Thorne had a lot of iconic calls. His voice was just a certain octave that went through your bones as a play-by-play. He's a special caller, sort of like how Doc Emmerich is just special, right? Like the sounds that these guys can produce are just different than everybody else. And that's why some of those guys we're talking about are you know, just legends of this game. And Charles Ferris says Bork lifting the cup. How about when Gary Thorne did that when Ray Bourque lifted the cup.
Yeah, but I meant goal call.
Charles, the minute you just put that in, Charles, I got to tell you, I can almost hear him saying that in my ears. Like I hear that call,
and that was 2 years.
That was another unbelievable moment. And what's interesting is some of these guys, they workshop that earlier in a day. Like I've worked with Kenny Albert before. I've done games with Sam Rosen. You know, these are. I mean, Sam Rosen's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I'm sure one day Kenny would probably go into the Hall of Fame too. But
1,000%.
you know, these guys, they workshop these calls, right? If you know it's a Stanley Cup clinching game that morning, they'll write some stuff down. They'll work through some stuff, and then again, it's still a live, natural reaction, but they've almost rehearsed it a little bit and given themselves a little bit of guidance to make sure they nail that punch moment. You know, they hit that moment, which will probably live on forever. We're now talking about the Ray Bourque call, and we're talking about the call Gary Thorne had on with Korea 20 plus years ago. And we remember the words that were spoken. And that's where these play-by-play guys are like artists. A lot of them, they have this punch like ready to go, and the really good ones deliver.
You want to hear a great story? Actually, if I have,
it depends how long it is.
No, it's relevant, and it's a shout out to Scotty Gomez, who told this story on one of my other shows like a year ago. Scotty Gomez also congratulate him on the Surrey Eagles head coaching job he just got yesterday, which is cool. Good to see him back in the game. But Scotty Gomez told me a story when he was a rookie on the Devils. Gary Thorne, you know, the Ranger call. Do you believe it? Do you believe it? Mark Messier, he said we will win game 6. He has just picked up the hat trick. Like Scotty Gomez, growing up, loved that call.
Yeah.
And he was a Ranger fan growing up. I believe so, at least. And I forgot which Devil player it was, but Scotty Gomez told me at a morning skate, and anyone who's heard Scotty Gomez talk, he is fucking hilarious. Gomez was taking the puck and going into the spot in the Continental Airlines Arena that Messier scored from on the empty net, and he was saying it out loud. He was like, do you believe? And he was shooting from the empty net as like he was playing for the Devils. He was a Devil at the time. And someone, I forgot who it was. It might have been like Claude Lemieux or one of the Devils vets, like lifted him up by his jersey. He was like, if you fucking do that again, I will kill you. Like, it's one of the best stories I've ever heard. I'll have to find the clip or something. I just spit out of my mouth. But
he just, and Scotty Gomez has been in the news. He just got named head coach and general manager.
I just said that.
I was reading the chat. I just had a Johnny
Are you serious?
Yeah, I just had a Johnny moment.
Wow. I thought you were just fucking with me.
No, I'm sitting here trying to read the chat because now people are dropping all their favorite, you know, big time moments. And, you know, the Al Michaels, do you believe in miracles? Listen, Dacky, Jack Michaels has had some legendary calls in this playoff run for Edmonton. I mean, he, again, you know, I made a comment on social media that I thought the Bruins, if they were smart, they would go after him. I could tell you, I don't think that that's happening because I've heard about who the 4 finalists are for that job and where Nesson is thinking about going. Obviously Chicago went out and took the guy from Calgary and didn't come after your boy Jack Michaels, but I think Jack Michaels is phenomenal and should have a way bigger role on national broadcasting, whether it's Canada, whether it's the US. I mean, CeCe's great. You know, and a great person and has that great unique call that he does on Sportsnet. You know, I know Gord Miller's obviously been a big voice in Canada for a while now, the way he works with Ray Ferraro, but you know, there's definitely some really, really good calls out there. And these guys, they rise to these moments. I mean, this is their Stanley Cup moment when they get an opportunity to make these calls. And I've been there in a national championship game, and I know it's a little different, you know, when it's the NCAA, but it's the biggest game for that level. And I want to make sure that when a goal happens or a big goal happens, like I'm ready to punch it and I'm ready to deliver on the analysis. Obviously Butchie's the one who handles the initial call, but you know, you want to rise to those moments and deliver to the fans what they deserve. And I see a comment about Ken Daniels.
Yeah.
Ken Daniels is amazing. I mean, he is one of the great play-by-play men. You know, when there's a big moment in a Detroit game, especially I remember late in the season this year, we played a couple on this show because we were just blown away with how good Ken is. And it shouldn't be surprising to us because he does it time and time again. But Detroit Red Wing fans are really lucky to have Ken Daniels. They really are. And there's really good ones everywhere. There really is. I mean, look at your New York Rangers with Sam Rosen.
Yep.
I know, the fastball's maybe not quite 99 anymore, but he's still Sam Rosen, right? And your Ranger fans absolutely love and adore the man. Speaking of the Rangers, wow, you sure got Rangers Nation in their feelings yesterday, didn't you, Johnny?
In which part? There was two different things. I mean,
well, I didn't know that too. I just thought it was the Patrick Kane thing. Yes. Oh, I guess you did. Let's touch on news yesterday.
We have a question, from Kreider 20 by 20. Did they talk about Barclay Goodrow? Well, we're about to.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about little Rangers news as of yesterday because like I said, Johnny really stirred up Rangers Nation yesterday. It seems like anytime you tweet a video about the Rangers or the Islanders, you're talking about viral clips.
Let's be fair. I didn't really stir shit up. I asked Frank about Patrick Kane, and Frank said the Rangers. I never asked about the Rangers. I didn't bring up the Rangers. Not me.
Okay.
Just to be fair.
So go ahead. Let's talk about it.
Well, let's talk about Barclay Goodrow. I mean, he gets put on waivers, and he was one of Frank's biggest buyout targets. It's a fourth liner making $3.6 million. It's someone that. Here's the thing, though, with Ranger fans, it's like they're pissed now because while Barclay Goodrow got a lot of shit all year for making the money he did playing on the fourth line, not really scoring goals, he's one of the guys that showed up in the playoffs and was a big time playoff performer this year for the team. So the Ranger fans are all like, why are we putting the one guy who showed up in the biggest moment on waivers? Well, it's to clear up some cap space, obviously. But where my brain went to, because Larry Brooks and Molly Walker put out an article that there could have been a negotiated deal with the Sharks that could be picking up Barclay Goodrow off waivers at 2 p.m. today. That seems to be the time frame when that all happens, right, Colby? Is that correct?
Yeah, let me ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
Does Barclay Goodrow have
no move?
No move?
I believe so. Yeah. Let me double check.
Double check on Cap Friendly what he has, because you could always just trade him for future consideration.
No move.
Okay,
no
so
trade.
So basically what's going to happen here, if that does happen and he gets picked up by San Jose, I could see the players union filing a grievance.
Really?
Because if there was some sort of prearranged deal here, and look, Chris Drury
definitely sketchy
and Mike Grier were teammates at BU. I mean, these guys go way back. Remember what Grier's last job was before he went to San Jose? Special advisor to Chris Drury in New York. I mean, he was, his right-hand guy in New York. So you're talking about two guys that have that relationship. So if that is the case, that's not legal. So Larry Brooks and Molly Walker might have blown open a story that is not the end. This might not be the end of it, and you'd think the players union will get involved if that's the case.
Yeah. These are things that way more than me about. But where
it looks like Charles is telling us he has a modified no move clause, 12 or 15 teams no move. So that means he's got a list, and if San Jose is not on the list, or is on the list, then he can't, he vetoes that trade there. But this to me would be circumvention of a player's contract if that's the case. We don't know if that's the case, but we'll find out at noon today. We'll find out if there's been a claim.
Yeah. And the window ends at 2:00, I think.
Excuse me, say that again. The window,
like
when you put a guy on waivers, it's 24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. And you put in your claims, and from worst to best. So, technically San Jose would have the second run at him. If Utah, there could be 15 teams that put a claim in for Barclay Goodrow. If Utah didn't put in a claim, San Jose would get him. That's how that works. It goes from worst to best with claim priority.
Okay. But yeah, last night
it would be a huge savings on the New York Rangers cap situation. Yeah.
And, I mentioned last night Mario Ferraro, who's one of the, hottest trade targets right now, 2 years left on his deal at $3.25 million. Obviously Mario is a close friend of mine. I didn't talk to him. I haven't heard anything, but, the Rangers are talking to Ryan Lindgren right now, and Lindgren might want $5 million or $6 million contract.
Yeah, like I'd rather have Ferraro at 3 than Lindgren at 5
so,
or 6. I mean, that's not even debatable.
So I was thinking a little bit outside the box, and I was like, oh, well, maybe Drury and Greer had talked. Goodrow, obviously there's no trade involved right now because it's waivers, and San Jose would just be claiming him. But maybe this leads into something later on where if San Jose is doing this favor for New York, maybe the Rangers are negotiating a trade for San Jose. And my brain just kind of went to Mario Ferraro, because if the Rangers do move on from Ryan Lindgren, Mario Ferraro is a perfect replacement because it clears up money elsewhere that you could spend. And Ferraro is a very similar style player to Ryan Lindgren, if not better, in my opinion. Just Mario's been buried in San Jose.
I think Mario's actually probably got a little bit more skill.
Yeah, he's been buried in San Jose, though.
And I think he's a little bit more versatile. The question is how is Mario a top pair defenseman with Adam Fox? I don't know the answer to that.
He played a lot with Brent Burns when Brent Burns was in San Jose. That was his D partner.
Right.
So it's not like he hasn't played with an offensive defenseman before.
And he's had hard matchups. It's just he's been in such a losing situation for a while that it's hard to really know, right? I can't tell you I watched San Jose play much last year. I saw them more the year before when I was in Chicago, but I can't tell you I saw much. So this is an interesting story. And if he does get picked up, it's not going to go away quick, because again, this would be circumventing a player's no movement clause by putting him on waivers and having a prearrangement based on knowing that he wouldn't accept a trade. Because again, you could have just traded him for future considerations if you want. So I also wonder, are they just putting 2 and 2 together with the Drury-Greer relationship, or was there actual, are they going to be able to find a paper trail? Is there going to be, emails, texts, calls? How much will how much would an investigation uncover? I have no idea.
Me either. No, I don't know, but it's going to be an interesting storyline.
We'll keep an eye on that. Filip Hronek, look, everybody has Twitter. Filip Hronek, he gets a big deal at 8.725. I was talking to Pizza Sports Guy last night. I think this line's Noah Dobson up for probably $8 million a year, 8 times 8. I mean, I think he's a better player than Hronek with more upside. So if you're an Islanders fan, the thought of Dobson getting 8 by 8, that should make you pretty happy, because within 2 or 3 years, this is a $10 million defenseman, the way the cap is climbing. I think if you can get Dobson locked up at 8 for 8, I think that'll be really team friendly within a few years. I think it'd be a good contract now and a great contract later. But that's, to me, the reason I thought about that was the Hronek deal at 8 times 7.25. Hurricanes made the Tulsky hiring official yesterday. Again, we'll see how that pans out, right? We'll see what moves he makes, how aggressive he is. They're looks like they're going to lose Gensel. I don't hear anybody saying Gensel's returning. So they're kind of back to square one. They've got some decisions to make with some RFAs. And they just gave Chatfield $3 million a year, which again seems to be, for me, a lot of money for a third pair defenseman, just way too much. So I think that's all we got today, Johnny, unless you have anything else you want to hit on. We appreciate everybody in the chat. On your way out of the episode, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to the Daily Faceoff YouTube. Catch me and Tyler Yaremchuk at noon Eastern today for DFO Live. Keep an eye at 1 p.m. for that discussion between Frank and Washington Capitals GM Brian McClellan on Frankly Speaking. Oilers Nation is going to have Fernando Persani on today. That's not going to be on Daily Faceoff's YouTube. That's on Oilers Nation's YouTube page. But again, we're all, they all button up under the same roof, right? So we're not trying to send you elsewhere, but we're all one company here at the end of the day. So check all that stuff out. Keep an eye on draft coverage as we get closer. We should have some more updates for you guys on tomorrow's show as to what next week will look like. And until then, Vic, good work on the producing today. I know we hit you with a lot of videos. Our chat, we appreciate how active you guys were today, and we should see everybody back tomorrow. Johnny, final word.
I got nothing. Enjoy the day. We'll see you tomorrow. And Oilers in 7.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic